Welcome back to day 14 of Hammerween. We're going to be talking about 1961's Shadow of the Cat. There you go. Starring Barbara Shelley, Andre Morell, a whole bunch of other people. Some real luminaries. William Lucas, Freda Jackson, Conrad Phillips. A lot of people with really solid careers. And directed by John Gayling, who's someone who we haven't covered yet on the show, but has directed some terrific cameras. Check out his filmography, John Gayling. So, bit of background. This film was snuck in by Hammer after one of their films fell through. They had sets designed of Spanish kind of villas and houses and whatnot, and film fell through, funding fell through. What we're going to do with all these Spanish villas we've got designed? Well, they changed one of their films, Curse of the Werewolf, from France to Spain and utilised the sets for that. And then when they'd finished making that, they just made this. They wanted can we get something that's a bit old dark housey, all set in one location really, so we can utilise the sets once more. So, although ostensibly, when you look at the exteriors, you should be thinking, why are they in Spain all of a sudden? Inside, it's old Gothic English houses. It's not, it's all filmed at Hammer Studios, but regardless. So, let's get into the plot and then the review, and then you can go and have your tea or something. It's up to you. I don't control you. So, there's a murder to kick us off. An old woman is reciting Poe to her cat. She's reciting The Raven, and she is quickly bumped off rather horribly in full view of the cat. The cat is watching at all times, which is, believe me, a theme of the film with the tagline, "Stare into these eyes if you dare." The cat is watching, as indeed that it is there. That's how it appears in the film, by the way, not this. But so the I should say though, Poe casts a bit of a shadow over the film because I mean obviously they're alluding to the black cat here, and then the whole film has a little bit of Telltale Heart around it. So although she recites the Raven, the Black Cat and Telltale Heart are really the two Poe stories that, if we were to name two that inspired this film, it would be those two. But there's certainly a lot more besides, a lot of classic English Gothic literature and whatnot. So, this old woman's been murdered, and the cat saw it. She'd been murdered, we found out straight away by whom? Butler of the house. So the butler did it for a change, in league with the housekeeper and the gentleman of the house. So he's killed off his own wife. He's played by Andrew Morell. And we very quickly establish they didn't have a loving relationship, and he always had married her for the money. But she's lasting a bit longer than he thought, so it's time to speed up the process. A rather silly mistake, though, a bit amateur. He had the will changed just before doing it, which, I'm sure that won't look suspect to anybody. And oddly, it doesn't really come into play that that happened. But anyway, there are, of course, shenanigans at play instantly involving the cat. They want to bump the cat off because the cat witnessed it. We're never quite told why they automatically assume the cat is up to something or why the cat witnessing it would be a particularly big deal. They just know the cat witnessed it and instantly want to kill the cat. But that sets our cat up, who's really, as much as we can mention all sorts of gothic influence, he's really John Rambo, this cat. Well, it's a she, Tabitha, but really John Rambo because traps are laid, plans are hatched, survival mode is on with this cat. So from the very moment of that murder and realizing the cat witnessed it, they're out to kill the cat, poisoned meat, setting up traps, and the cat's onto them at the same time, which all sounds faintly ridiculous. It played 100% straight. So the young niece of the family, played by the wonderful Barbara Shelley, is called home. She was the person who would have been the benefactor of the original will, and she's now been brought home to be told by Andre Morel in a kind way. Your cruel aunt took you out the will just before she died or disappeared. They don't even admit that she died because they've buried the body out in the moors. Your cruel aunt, what horrible woman. But don't worry, I'll look after you, dear. Your loving uncle. Barbara Shelley's instantly onto this because, she's played by Barbara Shelley, so she's always a bit ahead of the curve. She's a smart cookie. Cat shenanigans ensue. I don't know how much you can spoil this film or how much you should spoil this film, so I'm not going to do too much. But suffice to say, the cat attacks back. So it doesn't just put up with avoiding their traps and their attempts to poison it or catch it in a big trap and blah blah blah. The cat goes from slightly more innocent creature who maybe just observes as they bring chaos upon themselves. I think the back puts it as was it supernatural force or psychotic compulsion that drove five maddened murderers to destroy themselves? Well, both, really, because ostensibly, for the first part of the film, accidents happen and the cat's there when they happen. You could put it down to that. But then quite quickly thereafter, we start to, and we're going to kind of segue straight into the review from this. We start to get a real sense that the cat is causing these. So the cat does have some kind of ability, is much more conscious and capable than a cat should be. So, I mean, the back mentions supernatural force. The film never really plays it that way, but there's always a vague undercurrent of, cats through mythology, witches, familiars, that kind of thing. There's always that kind of undercurrent of the ancient about the cat. And the cat, gives wonderful reaction shots, which always helps. I mean, given that kind of look, I mean, if that was an actor, that'd be $1 million look, that. So when the cat witnesses a murder or revenge, an act of revenge, and gives that kind of look, there really is a slight indication almost that we're in the middle of a slasher film from the cat's point of view, and it's going to take revenge on the people that have destroyed its mistress, which wonderful. Barbara Shelley, the cat likes because she wasn't involved with the crime and she's always been kind to the cat. But we're told everyone else used to be kind to the cat. And it was only when this disappearance of the matriarch happened that their attitude towards the cat changed. So the cat clearly has the ability to know right and wrong, to decide that they were all in on it together. So the cat knows conspiracies, and the cat has applied judgment on these people because of it. So there is a faint hint of the supernatural, I think, there to it, that the cat isn't just passive, because you could play this as their greed destroys them internally, and their obsession with catching this cat and tying every end off is what undoes them in a kind of lady killers way. You could treat it like the Lady Killers, where the old woman in the Lady Killers, the classic with Alec Guinness, doesn't do any of the killings herself, but their obsession with bumping her off leads to them being bumped off themselves. You could have the cat as the Lady Killer's old lady, easily. But what the film again does halfway through is decide that the cat needs to be a more aggressive protagonist, antagonist, slight force of, spirit of vengeance. It's a very odd structure to the film where it feels like halfway through they kind of changed the tone of the film completely from a kind of moralistic, gothic into something a bit more Poe inspired, into something that leans on the supernatural a little bit, or at least lets you imagine that that's where things should be. It's quite a fascinating structure, really. It mentions five depraved souls, is that what they called them? maddened murderers. They might as well be depraved souls. Um, we need more cannon fodder for the cat. So Andrew Morell sends for his extended family to come and help, just so the cat's got more people to bump off. That is literally their only purpose in the plot. So Barbara Shelley, of course, is the gothic heroine of the piece. She has to kind of solve the case, restore her own inheritance, and she's rewarded because, of course, she's not greedy. She's never been in it for the money. Um, and then there's a wonderful, wonderful piece towards the end of the film. Again, I'm not going to spoil the third act of the film because it is kind of bonkers in a lot of ways. But the end has the cat meeting another family with a sense of the cat's always watching, but has a particular interest in inheritance schemes. Yeah, a very niche interest for this cat. It's, inheritance tax, families being disloyal. The cat has themes it likes to pursue, and we set up the idea that this cat could have a spin-off involving a different family if they're not careful. Quite bizarre. What this film also is completely wonderful. I have a brilliant time every time I watch it. Barbara Shelley's terrific. She has to be, of course, the Barbara Shelley type that Hammer always liked to use, apart from a couple of places, but the very fastidious and careful, but heart of gold, delicate. But she also, because she's Barbara Shelley, projects a great intelligence, a great empathy. She's a very humanist actor. She's a wonderful, wonderful actor, Barbara Shelley. Terrific, top tier. To me, having her in a Hammer film is as good as having any of your big hitters. And speaking of big hitters, one of my real favourite Hammer actors is Andre Morell. And he starts as the real villain of the piece. He's the one that's bumped off the wife for the inheritance. And he quickly becomes quite pathetic as we start to realise a cat's causing your come down, your whole scheme to come around you. He's got a dicky heart already, and the cat, what, within the first 20 minutes of the film, attacks him, gets him to have another heart attack, and causes him to be bedridden for the rest of his days. And then the cat has a further incident with him later on. So you almost start to feel sorry for these people because the cat has no problem when it comes to bumping them off or when it comes to only attacking when they happen to be at the very top of a flight of stairs, and it would clearly be impossible for them to maintain their balance if a cat just happened to jump out of nowhere and attack them at that very point in time. It's wonderful. And Andre Morell, he knows exactly what is in here. He knows that, again, he could be someone in The Lady Killers, Andre Morell. He's that kind of actor. He almost is in one of a film that I'm not going to be covering this month. I know a few people have asked, but I want to save it for Christmas time. Cash on Demand. Andrew Morell could play it like he does in Cash on Demand, very much so. But he chooses to be a bit more sly, a bit more sinister, a bit more, I don't want to say panto, but a little bit more knowing. He knows what he's in at all times. He's a wonderfully attentive actor, Andrew Morell. I absolutely adore him. And everyone in here is exactly what they need to be. It's a brilliant little cast. Frida Jackson's terrific in her small role. A brilliant cast of perfectly cast people from top to bottom. I mean, you think that Hammer really only made this because another film fell through, and then they had the scraps that were left over after um, Curse of the Werewolf. This is a minor miracle of a film because it's ridiculously fun. Some people think it's quite dull and quite boring. I don't connect that way at all with it. I think the frequency of the cat attacks and the change in tone for what the cat does, the cat's modus operandi, it's so baffling, so silly, so fun that I don't care. John Gayling knows exactly what he's directing as well. There's no sense of having a director here that doesn't know the tone he should be going for. So you can see him saying, let's set this up seriously. as a kind of Bluebeard scheme. Let's set that up, and then let's start throwing in little, slightly supernatural things because we're Hammer, and that would be quite funny, and it would kind of twist the tone a little bit. And if we twist the tone every 20 minutes or so, then we'll be running length in no time. I mean, there's even a bit of the 101 Dalmatians about it, which was out after as a film, I know, but the idea of the family criminal gang coming to help out, it's very much like Cruella de Vil's little mob that she has. Very much. Just a fantastic time. You're never going to be bored watching Shadow of the Cat. The people that are, I don't know what you want. I really don't know what you want. I think this is one of the most easy to watch Hammers. Ridiculously easy to watch. And just fun, brilliant time. Yeah. That's the end of this one. It's not a deep film. It's not something that you could write essays and books on, maybe on the production part, but certainly not on the themes and whatnot, because it's just a good time. It's really just aiming for that. But hey, I'm here for it. I'm always going to be here for Shadow of the Cat. It's a brilliant, brilliant movie. So there you go. Tomorrow, dear friends, talking of films that aren't very deep, you couldn't write a book about. Well, tomorrow we can't say any of that kind of thing because tomorrow we're talking about one of my absolute favorite films, not just Hammer films, one of my favorite films in general that is incredibly deep. And you could write a dozen books on the mythology and implications and ideas. We're talking tomorrow on our Nigel Neal Tuesdays, episode 3 of that miniseries. We're talking about Quatermass and the Pits. So I'll see you then. Until then, good kitty. Sleep tight.